shopgear.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the TTRP, another episode where Cyclone Jones is missing in action, but fear not, we have another guest host, and this man needs no introduction, but I'm going to let him introduce himself because that's what he does best.
Ladies and gentlemen, now a co-host on Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast. You can hear me every Monday on the Necrocast account, wherever you get your fine-ass podcasts. You can hear me every Tuesday and Wednesday on Films of Fury, also wherever you get your fine-ass podcasts. And you can see me bashing people's faces in all throughout the Northeast. It is the co-host with the most, the 17% prince of podcasting passion, the one, the only, Sergeant Fury, reporting in for duty on my first night as co-host.
Yes, is a guest co-host once again, Sergeant Fury here, who's been on the show before, who's been an interviewee, but this time he's in hosting duties, and we're going to talk AEW and their Double or Nothing pay-per-view event from this past Saturday night.
Yeah, which, you know, I got a chance to watch, and, you know, I'm totally excited for the product. You know, I was a fan of All In and what the Bucks and Cody were able to achieve last year in the Sears Center in September, last Labor Day weekend, and this is, I wanted to be a part of history, and damn was it history.
It was. Leading off the show, you had the Casino Battle Royal for a spot in the first ever AEW Championship match. You had names like Shawn Spears, formerly known as Ty Dillinger, Sonny Kiss, Glacier, Sunny Days, Maxwell J. Freeman, who recently was in the Buffalo area at ESW, Joey Janela, Dustin Thomas, Billy Gunn, among others. And of course, this one also involved someone that had a match originally for Double or Nothing, but the match got pulled due to various things and agreements outside of AEW. Hangman Page gets involved in this match and is your victor in this battle royal.
Yeah, they definitely threw everything at the wall that they could, and, you know, obviously a member of the Elite were to shine, and I mean, it was a good, I would like to say that it was comparable in some ways to some of the other over-budget battle royals that you've seen on Ring of Honor and whatnot.
Yeah.
You know, definitely fun, definitely had its moments. You know, I'm not gonna lie, you know, seeing Brian Pillman Jr. in there was pretty brutal, and Billy Gunn looking fucking jacked as ever. And to me, you know, it got the crowd going on the pre-show. It got everyone invested in the show, and it set up a future title match for Hangman Page.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on a side note, Hangman Page actually had a match with Pac, formerly known as Aaron Neville, but that match was kind of got pulled because Pac became a champion in Dragon Gate, and the way that he was portraying himself as he was not going to lose while holding this championship. That match did happen. That match was released on the internet by AEW and the company and Dragon Gate to give the fans at least the match that they were hoping they were going to see.
Yeah, and you know, that's nothing new. If you go back into the history of Japanese wrestling or even Mexican wrestling, with, you know, all of the multiple promotions on top of each other, you know, you didn't have a wrestler who was contracted to New Japan losing to a wrestler who was contracted to maybe War, you know, yeah, wrestling in Roman. And just like with AAA, you didn't have someone losing in AAA who held a belt in another promotion 5 minutes down the road. road because it could be bad for business. You know, it could diminish that title, at least in their minds. I mean, this was the days when word of mouth was really what kept it going. Nowadays, I mean, it's nothing to see the champion of one promotion go against the champion of another promotion, and no one looks worse for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Up next, you saw Sammy Guevara taking on Kip Sabian. This match, good, solid opening match. Sabian picking up the victory. Now, while the match was fun and everything, it wasn't as smooth as some people may have liked, but both guys looked good.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, to me, they were stepping out. They were the first singles match in the history of AEW. Okay, so that's it. Like, I know that sounds a little strange to say, but you only get a handful of firsts.
Yeah.
In anything. I mean, if memory serves me correctly, and I may have had a concussion or two in my day, the first match of Monday Nitro was Flying Brian Pillman versus Jushin Thunder Liger.
It was.
You know, that's the first fucking match in Nitro history. This was the first singles match in AEW history. I mean, it doesn't get much more of an honor than that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, before they got to some action, you had the Bucks, Cody, Brady, and Kenny Omega arrive in the front of the crowd, and they were there to welcome everybody to the show and thanked everybody and whatnot. And they kind of had a little fun poking at attendance numbers being inflated at this point. That kind of made me laugh.
Well, I mean, it's pro wrestling, bro. You have to round up the numbers. I mean, there were 20,000 screaming fans in the MGM Grand Arena, which only holds 12. But there were 20,000 of them.
Yep.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Up next, you saw the SCU versus the Strong Hearts, Seema, Lindemann, and T-Hawk. The SCU, of course, being Daniels and Kazarian. And it was a hell of a 6-man tag, all over the place. It was a very good opener and a hell of a way to kick off the pay-per-view the proper way.
Yeah, I mean, you want to display your best. And I mean, I know that this is, I'm not going to call it a limited roster. This is a new roster. There are those people that, you know, the hardcore, diehard fans like us who know who these guys are. But for you have to go into this believing this is the first time that a lot of these people that bought the pay-per-view or were tuning in on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
This is the first time they're seeing these people. So with the freshness of that, they pulled out all the stops, and I believe had arguably one of the top 3 matches of the night, and it was your first match.
Yeah, it was one of the things that it was a great opening match and everything, and especially for, like you said, all the people that are turning in, because I'm guaranteed a lot of the people that decided to drop their money on pay-per-view were there mainly because, oh my God, Cody versus Dustin, and may have not known a lot of these other guys. And this match, the only downside of this match was some people going, Jim Ross was kept calling the Strong Hearts Chinese, so to speak. But I'm like, it's going to happen.
Yeah, you know what? It's in my opinion, look, I know that there were some people that were critical of the commentary team that was selected. Okay, Jim Ross made those guys look like $1 million.
Yep.
Yes, although Jim may have inaccurately represented their race, he was the fucking VIP of the night.
Absolutely.
Jim Ross was the VIP of the night because he was taking a brand new company, and he's done it, you know, also with New Japan shows and Ring of Honor shows.
Yep.
He's called them, and he knows wrestling. That's the thing. That's Jim Ross's thing. He knows wrestling.
He does, and he knows how to call it. The commentary team is joined by Allie, a recent member of the AEW team. Then, of course, is the triple threat match with the women, Kylie Ray versus Nyla Rose versus Dr. Britt Baker. But Brandy Rhodes comes out and decides to add a fourth to the match, and making her return to the ring in about 2 years, Awesome Kong.
Dude, mark out moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Dude, I've met her, and I've met Nyla in the Dynasty locker room. You know, we were on a show together a few years back. Just a sweetheart of a person. And to see Kong come down that aisleway, it was like, God, you know, what could have been when she was trying to have her run as Karma.
Yes.
In WWE.
Yep.
And then, you know, I kind of had this feeling, and we all did as wrestling fans. It's like, you know, Kong/Karma wrestles. She's a wrestler.
Yep.
And at that time, it was the age of the divas. Now it's not the age of the divas, and it's like she can do so much to bring up the female talent in AEW to the next level because she's been all over the world. And it was just great to see her back.
Yeah.
Along with Britt Baker.
Oh, absolutely. I mean? I worked a show with Nyla Rose like last year in New Jersey, last year in New Jersey, maybe before that. I've been in the locker room. I've been at shows where Britt Baker has been there, and I've talked to Britt Baker. Both of them are amazing women. So,
and they put on a hell of a show.
Oh yeah, they did.
Introduced female wrestling, AEW style female wrestling, and that's the other thing is that, you know, this is a different style of pro wrestling that they plan to tell, and obviously the roster of women is going to expand. It's not like what WWE has or NXT, you know, currently the product that they're able to push with female wrestling, but it's a really good start. It's a really good start, and they've got, you know, several months until their deal for TNT kicks off, so they've got time to grow that roster.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, this was a hell of a match. It was a match that allowed Baker and Kylie Ray to shine, while Kong and Rose played their roles to a T. Kong got a great reaction out of the crowd, but Britt Baker picks up the victory because, from all intents and purposes, it looks like it's going to be Britt Baker is going to be the face of the AEW women's division.
Yeah, and she's got the $1 million smile. You know, she should. She's a dentist.
Yeah. Yes. As I've stated before, she is legitimately a dentist. She runs her own dentist office and wrestles on the side.
Well, I don't think she's going to be, you know, wrestling on the side anymore.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, she's all in with All Elite, and it's awesome to see these 4 women get the opportunity to be, you know, second match on the inaugural AEW pay-per-view.
Yeah, absolutely. Up next, tag team action as Jack Evans and Angelico versus the best friends of Trent and Chucky T.
Seeing what their tag team wrestling is going to be in this company, they went out and, I mean, you've already got, you know, you started with a 6-man, you had this tag match, and then you had the eventual, what I would call one of the headlining matches with the Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers. Like, tag team wrestling is very well represented in AEW, and as a fan of tag team wrestling and as a former tag team wrestling specialist, dude, I mean, I've always fought tooth and nail for the dynamics of tag wrestling, and each one of the tag matches that were represented on this card were different.
Oh, absolutely. You know? It completely 2 different styles, 2 different views, but it shows that tag team wrestling is going to be a focal point of AEW.
I really hope so, and I'd love to see those belts when they're, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the best friends pick up the victory, and the build throughout was great. It kept going, the crowd was into it, and then adding to it, you had the post-match after effects of another tag team making their appearance, as both teams are standing there, the lights go off, and all of a sudden the lights come back on, and the Super Smash Brothers arrive in AEW.
Which shocked the hell out of me. And, the funny part is some people commented on the chance of who are you? And it's like, that's the reaction that unfortunately we're going to get with some of these arrivals. Because the Super Smash Brothers, I know the Super Smash Brothers, the hardcores. Once again, I have to go to the hardcores.
Yep.
There are a lot of hardcore fans, and were a lot of hardcore fans in that audience. Not all of them are familiar with some of the talent that we're going to see. They know some of the big names. They might know some of the bigger names on the independent circuit that they're signing.
Yes.
But, not everyone is going to get the huge reaction that one would expect. I'm sure if the New Heart Foundation would have shown up, people would have popped because they would have obviously recognized Davey Boy Jr.
Yeah.
And they would have recognized Teddy.
And Pillman.
And Pillman Jr. And it would have been, who already performed earlier in the night, so it would have been a huge pop. But you know what? That's the excitement of this company, because it is a throwback to WCW, when your average fan who went to a Nitro knew who Hogan was, knew who Savage was, knew who Flair was, knew who Arn was. But who is Jushin Thunder Liger? Who's this Rey Mysterio kid?
Yep. That's the thing. They're Cody and Dustin, so to speak. They were in WCW. They saw what Bischoff did, and with talent from outside the world, and it's like, okay, you may not know who these people are, but you're gonna know who they are.
Yeah, like the diehards who read the magazines and tape traded from ECW, and give ECW their credit on this one.
Oh yeah,
they definitely knew who Rey Mysterio was when he showed up in Fall. They definitely knew who Chris Benoit was when he showed up on Nitro.
Yep.
They definitely knew who Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero were when they showed up on Nitro. But your average dude sitting in the crowd knew like the big seven of WCW.
Yeah.
Didn't know who these guys were. Give them a chance, and a year later, 2 years later, they were paying for them to be in the main events.
Absolutely. Well, up next was more women's action, but kind of the international flair of the women's action, as it was a 6 women's tag match. Asia Kong, Yuka Sasaki, Emma Sakura versus Hikaru Shida, Rhino Abe, and Rhino Masanami.
Which, once again, we're going back. They're building the foundation of women's wrestling in AEW. And, where Britt Baker, it appears, is going to be the face of the women's wrestling, they are bringing in so many different styles. And that is something I love, because, you can't just have one particular style of wrestling. And that's one of the things that, developmental for WWE has, was able to do during that beginning of the quote revolution a few years ago, where it was like, where we were used to Divas matches, all of a sudden, like, we were watching NXT matches, and on house shows, the beginning of the house shows for NXT, you were getting a 25-30 minute match between Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair, and meanwhile they had a tag team match where it's like Bayley and Becky versus, two other, Natty and whoever, and it's like, holy shit, like, the styles are all over the place in this match, and it's fantastic. And that's what they're doing in AEW, only they're doing it in a much more global sense, because I think Cody, the Bucks, and the rest of the Elite, and Tony Khan, they're not planning for this to be, a from Baltimore to Atlanta promotion. They're planning global takeover.
Yep, they are doing global, because this is the thing. Cody, the Bucks, Omega, they've all spent time around the world.
Yes.
And everything.
And they've scouted locker rooms. That's the other thing.
Oh, yeah.
They know who they want, and I can imagine in many trips they were like, well, who if you had a company, blah, blah, like we've all done it, like, oh, if I started a promotion tomorrow, these would be my top 8 people. It's like,
yeah.
Well, now they can do it. You know what I mean?
I think every independent wrestler has had that conversation on our road trip going back. It's like, if you were to start a promotion, name your top 8 people you would want.
Oh yeah, and I mean, there's certain people that I could literally rattle off and be like, I would want these 8 people just right off the rip. And the good part about it is that they've got the ability to do that, and they're bringing in top talent. That's the best part.
Absolutely. Shida, Abe, and Mitsunami pick up the victory. Outside of maybe a timing issues, which the referee covered it well. The refs that they have are very solid. They all killed it. The crowd was hot into it, and so far up to this point, the matches have pretty much all kick ass. Up next was one of the matches that everybody has been waiting for to see, and that is Cody versus Dustin Rhodes. And Cody's entrance, people on the internet kind of just flip shit when Cody's entrance happened. You saw the throne, so to speak, with the symbol and the sledgehammer, which he destroys the throne, and people on the internet kind of lost their shit because he's like, oh, look, Cody's making it reference to Triple H. I'm like, yeah, but also it's a thing of, you're on the throne that I want, I'm coming for it.
Yeah. Let's talk entrances. Let's talk entrances for this event.
Yeah.
No, and Cody's is a prime example of doing this. One of the things that I liked about this is that they gave you grand entrances for a lot of these performers. And I would say Cody's, Jericho's, and obviously the Bucks had the best entrances of the night.
Of course.
But we'll talk about Cody's first. I know that there's like some people are like, oh, we go to the Hall of Fame where Triple H made the comment about, if Vince wants, he'll buy that pissant promotion and fire you. And he made the comment about, oh, I guess if you put, executive vice president in front of your name, you all of a sudden are cool. Yeah. And he took some jabs, and I kind of sat there and I was like, this is the Hall of Fame, dude. You kind of don't have to do that, but it's your speech, it's your Hall of Fame, it's your Hall of Fame. It's yours. Yeah. And I kind of thought, okay, what's going to be the return fire? What is it going to be, like some snarky interview? Is it going to be, a promo? And like he did kind of call Triple H out in that I'm going to kill the Attitude Era promo by saying, pissant bodybuilders. It's like, okay, so there's the rebuttal. We're good. Yep. Promo's going to get like 8 million views, and people loved it, and it was highly shared, and it was a beautiful promo. And then you see his entrance. And it was almost like zero fucks given. Like, you're sitting on this throne of this billion-dollar company, and you think you know wrestling. I'm going to show you what wrestling should be. Mm-hmm. And there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it because I'm Dusty Rhodes, son. Yeah.
And this is the thing, like, and not to get off track too far, is you have two guys in Cody Rhodes and Triple H. While Triple H was in WCW for a hot minute or whatever, he did go to the WWF, and then the people that he rode with Shawn Michaels, he rode with Kevin Nash, he rode with Scott Hall, he rode with Shaw Waltman. You're having that view versus Cody, who literally grew up with his father being Dusty Rhodes, that had wrestled all over the world, had wrestled for NWA, WCW, WWE in Japan. So it's like you have two guys that have this vast, like, knowledge, so to speak, that they grew up with and around, like, now being so to speak, the two heads of two very budding companies.
Their stories are very parallel. If you look at Triple H, and let's get off topic on this one because there's so many people that talked about the Iron Cross throne getting destroyed. this past Saturday. You know, Triple H rode in a car with a group of guys that were revolutionary, that people didn't always like, that people thought rubbed them the wrong way. But Triple H eventually went under the wing of, some would say, the greatest wrestling promoter of all time.
Yep.
In Vince McMahon. I mean, he's in the family. And he now has helped create the developmental system, you know, the performance center that I'm sure he talked about in the car or in the vans with the Clique. You know, he was down in the power plant seeing how they ran it in WCW. He probably had a brain full of notes. Like, if I ever got the chance to do it, this is how I would. And he did. He's doing it right now. Cody Rhodes, the son of the American dream, who, like you said, one of the greatest promoters, one of the greatest minds, geniuses, creative genius, baby. That's what I would call myself if I was here right now, Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream. You know, he's one of the greatest of all time. And he's the son of that. And he, being Cody, also learned that WWE style, but he also realized it can be done better.
Yep.
And he took that knowledge, rode with a group of guys who many considered to be controversial, who a lot of critics didn't like, and talked over ideas, and all of them were like, you know what, fuck it, let's do it. And they are.
Yep. And this is the thing is with AEW, you now have, and we'll get into it after and whatnot, but you have his brother there. You have Arn there. You have Dean Malenko there, because it's been reported that they were backstage in roles. You have Diamond Dallas Page there. There's all these people that learned under the Dusty Rhodes tree that are in AEW that know how Dusty Rhodes would have done things had he just been given full power. And now you're seeing that mixed in with the modernization of the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega.
And not just that, but we have to bring up the glaring fact. Had this match happened and it sucked, Triple H could have sat back and been like Nelson from The Simpsons.
Yep.
You know, like,
Yep.
You know, like, you had this fucking glorious, I'm trying not to swear as much as
You're perfectly fine.
So, like, you know, he's sitting back being like, you had this fucking perfect opportunity and you screwed it up. Like, congratulations, kid. You're not the dream son. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because that match was one of the best matches I've seen in a very long time.
And
I'm not trying to just say that to get underneath people's, you know, skin. Like, oh, he's an AEW shill. He's just a mark. No. Like, that was a great story.
No, there was a story that both Cody and Dustin put together, and you got to remember, Dustin Rhodes is 50 years old, and he was just coming off double knee surgery.
Just coming off double knee surgery, and this is a match that I know you and I talked about previously,
yes,
not on the podcast, where what if they would have done Stardust versus Goldust at WrestleMania?
Yep.
You and I both talked about it, like, oh, imagine the entrances, and imagine the glitz and the glamour, but it wouldn't have delivered because it would have been an 8-minute match.
Yep.
With, you know, I don't want to say shitty storyline leading up to it, but I do not think a Goldust versus Stardust match would have worked at WrestleMania because it wouldn't have been allowed to be this. This was like steal the show, match of the year candidate, not just match of the night, match of the year candidate for sure.
Yeah. And this is the thing, Dustin being 50, coming off knee surgery, he sold everything like $1 million. He bled profusely, and was still hanging with Cody. It had blood, it had emotion, it had great heat, and was different than anything else that you were going to see on this show.
absolutely. It was, it was an NWA match. Like, that to me, going and watching that match, that was Harley Race versus Ric Flair. That was Dusty versus Flair. That was Dusty versus Terry Funk. That was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Ric Flair. A lot of Ric Flair references right now.
Yeah. Well, Ric Flair, so to speak. Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes was the NWA.
But it's like, I said the same thing a couple years ago when I saw Sting versus Triple H at WrestleMania. I'm like, they're wrestling an NWA match at WrestleMania. And it's like the DX NWO stuff was, a little bit of, chocolate sprinkles and fudge on top of the sundae.
Yeah.
But it's like, you can tell when there's an NWA match happening. And fans are smart to that. And that is one thing that I feel WWE has been lacking is diversity within the product, because NWA told very hard-hitting, deep, emotional stories, which is what this was.
Yes.
But the funny part is that less was more in the NWA. Harley Race raking Ric Flair's eye and it bleeding in a cage. He didn't have to hit Rick but maybe 5 or 6 other times, and he could have sold it for like 25 minutes. You have Roddy Piper versus Greg the Hammer Valentine in a dog collar match at the first Starrcade. I know everyone talks about Flair winning the belt at Starrcade, but that was the bloody, brutal match that people were like, holy fuck.
That's one of the matches that everybody remembers from that Starrcade because of how brutal and bloody it was.
Exactly. And it's like, to me, that's what this match was, because the moment blood got introduced, it became less of let's do spot, kick out, nip up, fucking, her Humacanradas and all that other shit. It became Dustin was vulnerable, and Cody was going to take advantage of it.
And Cody went in for the kill, and Dustin fought it off until he couldn't fight it off no more.
And then the beautiful moment, and fans have put the two videos side by side, the Dusty promo asking to be Dustin's partner in WCW, and Cody's promo.
The after effect, Cody telling Dustin you can't retire here, and says next month at the next show it's going to be you and me versus the Young Bucks.
Yeah, because he needs his older brother, and it's like, holy, and with that one line that tugged at heartstrings.
Oh yeah, he's like, when he's like, I don't need a partner or a friend, I need my brother.
Yeah, and it's just like that crowd, like you saw grown-ass men crying.
Yep.
It's like, that's the fucking emotion we're supposed to get from fans.
Absolutely. But at this moment, we're going to take a small break. We got to just pay some bills, the Gear Network, sponsors and everything, but we will be back on the other side to finish up AEW and have a, so to speak, a little bit of a special thing, not so wrestling related, but we'll get more into that.
Welcome, everyone. This is Sleazy.
This is the Fat Man.
And the world-famous R-rated podcast is now on the Gear Network. The Wrestling Show with Sleazy and the Fat Man is classless and raunchy commentary on the wrestling business today. Our multiple hosts, including Sleazy the Fat Man, Chip Willett, and NEW owner Travis Kenning, give a differing take on news, rumors, reviews, and previews of the entirety of the worldwide pro wrestling market.
We do what we want, we say what we want, and we don't give a at all. That's just the way we go.
Check us out on the Gear Network.
We're back here on the TTRP, Pat G, the G stands for Gangster, joined by Sergeant Fury of Films of Fury as we're talking AEW, and we just finished up talking the Cody and Dustin Rhodes match, and after that, kind of, they had you get the highlights of Hangman Page winning the Battle Royal and whatnot, and of course, Maxwell J. Freeman comes out to interrupt. And this whole segment was kind of a nice little buffer segment, so to speak, between the emotional roller coaster ride that was Cody and Dustin and then the rest of the show.
And he is is so damn hated, and he's so damn good at being able to get hated. He's a good-looking dude who's able to pull off the mic skills. If you want my opinion, although we know, Jericho's obviously top dog, the alpha heel.
Yep.
He is a very close second. You can tell where they're going to be putting their money in the future.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially letting him have the interactions with Bret Hart, who debuted the AEW Championship.
Mm-hmm. And that's a huge rub for this kid. First off, he's of the age group like us, where it's like he watched Bret Hart.
Yep.
He knows the importance of the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. And compound that with, hi, Bret Hart is here at AEW to debut their brand new championship belt, which looks like money.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it's beautiful. It really is beautiful. It's like big gold, and that AWA belt had a beautiful baby, and they just threw it together with the New Japan belt, and they had like this orgy of metal.
Yep.
And it's like, boom.
Yeah, when I saw that title, I was like, yo, that's NWA meets AWA meets New Japan all day.
Oh, yeah. Someone sat back and they were just like, I want it to be bigger than the big gold. What? Like, bigger than big gold, huh? All right. Well, we're going to obviously not care about the person's back or hip issues in the future who has to wear that around their waist.
Yeah. Well, up next was a match that you had already mentioned previously. The AAA World Tag Team Championship match between the champions, the Young Bucks, versus the Lucha Brothers of Pentagon and Phoenix. And these four guys just... anytime you put these four men in a ring together, magic fucking happens.
And it was only fitting that in Las Vegas, beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, baby, you're going to have the kings of professional wrestling showing up looking like the king of rock and roll, baby. Because Young Bucks, they came out looking very stylish, if you know what I mean.
They did. They did.
I mean, the send up to Elvis, the jumpsuits, the pageantry, the fact that it was a super kick party all night long, and like you said, nothing away from the Lucha Brothers. Holy hell! It was like these four men have figured out how to defy gravity, and they do it on whim, and they do it so purposefully and so gracefully that it's and not only that, but we can't just talk about how high they fly and how well they look. They told a hell of a story too.
Yep. Yeah, they did. This match was completely different from what Dustin and Cody was, and it was wall-to-wall action, but both teams pretty much used everything in their arsenal they could think of to not only win the match, but to win the championship.
Exactly. And the big part about this is, it goes to show you that they not only... One of the things that I love talking to people about the differences in pro wrestling is it's like, the Lucha Brothers are straight up Lucha magic.
Yep.
The Young Bucks are world traveled. You can... Unbelievable cruiserweights, Americanized, strong style, Lucha. They've got the entire potpourri of in-ring ability when it comes to high flying. And I think the knock for them for years, and they really don't like it, is that people think, oh, well, all they are is high spots and super kicks. They can't go out there and tell a story. It's like the story has been over the last few months, like they showed up, won the belts, and the Lucha Brothers have been chasing them, and they chased them all the way to the doors of AEW's first show.
Yep.
Like, that is magical storytelling. That's prolonged storytelling, done with just YouTube and, snippets on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, and not to mention that the Young Bucks and Lucha Brothers have faced each other elsewhere other than Triple H since the Young Bucks have won the titles.
Exactly, and it's like, to me, this was the culmination of the chase, And it may not have fared well for the Lucha Brothers on this night, but damn it, did it set a precedence for AEW, like, hey, we're not afraid to bring in outside titles.
Nope.
Which would be great. I mean, I know that there's no working relationship with Ring of Honor. I know there's no working relationship that we know of with New Japan, even though some of their talent is planning to go over there and still do shows. You know, you never know in this new world of pro wrestling, and the way Tony Khan is a fan of pro wrestling. You know, you could have the Progress champion show up. You could have champions from Australia show up, and it could give them a bump and put AEW on the map elsewhere. I mean, it's a new world.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing with AEW. AEW, like with their relationship working around the world, yeah, you see the WWE kind of have relationships with other promotions and everything, but they're not showcasing really anyone. They're just, but we're sending you guys to be on part of your shows that these guys have wrestled for this company before. So it's not like they're really doing them a favor, but whatever. But with AEW, it's like, no, we're going to broadcast your championships, so we're going to broadcast your talent. We're going to give you that bump that you want to give you a bigger audience, because the American wrestling audience is as huge as it is.
Which, if you go back, that was the precedence that was set at All In, where you had, you know, NWA champion Nick Aldis, the Natural,
yep,
showing up, you know, with this 10 pounds of gold that Billy Corgan has been trying to has resurrected with YouTube, and they showcased that match not only on Ring of Honor television leading up to it, but on their very first show that was streamed, you know, on New Japan World. It's like, holy shit, like, these guys aren't afraid to go out and not just get the best talent, but it's like, if the best talent has a belt from another promotion, all right, bring that shit.
Yep, absolutely. And finally, leading up to the main event of the evening, the winner to determine the AEW champion, Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega. And once again, the entrance is just, Chris Jericho's entrance just made me pop all day long.
Dude, it's no secret. I think he's the GOAT. That's not just me saying it just to be like, oh, well, fuck all these other guys. Chris Jericho is the only man to have wrestled in WWF, original ECW,
yep,
WCW, New Japan, AAA, AEW, the only one to do it. And he had one hell of an entrance. It could have been a WrestleMania entrance.
Oh, that's what it looked like. Like, that kind of, the entrance he had, I was like, yo, this could have easily been like a WrestleMania entrance that he pulled off. Yeah, and the coolest part about it is he came out to Judas. He is continuing this, the Alpha Chris Jericho persona with the fedora and the long hair and the spiked jacket. Yep. From Kylie Customs, ring gear and Rockstar gear. You know, look for them on Instagram. Some of their work is just incredible. And it was Alpha versus Omega 2, the rematch from Wrestle Kingdom 12. And, you know, Omega came out looking like $1 million. And it's kind of hard to forget that these guys have not worked an actual match since, if I'm not mistaken, since the Jericho Cruise. Yeah, I think the last time they worked a match was that cruise. Yeah, and I mean, that goes for a lot of those guys. Most of these guys have not worked since either Wrestle Kingdom 13 or the Jericho Cruise, where, you know, you had the Alpha Club versus the Bullet Club. Yeah.
And it's like, you had this long delay for some of these guys, and Chris has been keeping in amazing shape. He's been posting his videos and everything, and he's been keeping this feud alive on primarily Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And then Kenny Omega comes out, and mind you, this is the first time American audiences truly have gotten a glimpse of
Kenny Omega. Yep.
And God, it was a good match.
It was. While the match may have not been on the same, have felt like the same as their New Japan match, the story of the match was great because it was.
I wanted to talk to you about that, Pat G, because I got into a Facebook discussion. I inserted myself into the discussion when I saw what the talk was.
Okay.
And it was about Alpha versus Omega 2.
Yep.
And someone said, is it just me, or is this match not good? And, a couple of wrestling friends of mine, interjected and kind of gave their opinions. But I likened this match. It was extremely similar to Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 26. The
second one?
The second one.
Yeah.
And the reason why I said this is this. Alpha versus Omega 1 was the match that never should have taken place. It was the dream match. It was, at that time, he was touting himself as still the best in the world at what he does.
Yep.
He kind of was calling himself the Alpha, but he was still light up jacket, kick pads and trunks.
Yep.
Chris Jericho. He was rock. He was WWE Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
So to speak, coming over to work with Kenny Omega, and they had a 47-minute classic. And yes, I know how long it is because I watched the match when I'm on the elliptical to time it, and I'm like, holy fuck, this is still a great match. You were not going to capture that magic again. Much like Undertaker Michaels 1 at WrestleMania 25.
Yep.
Was undoubtedly one of the best wrestling matches of all time because of, first, it was WrestleMania 25. Second, it was The Undertaker. Third, it was Shawn Michaels. You could tell these guys were not maybe in the full, well, Shawn, the twilight of his career. Undertaker was really not that far behind. And they went out there and pulled out all the stops and had a magical moment. You're not going to capture that a year later. You know what I mean? On both counts. It was a good match. It was a good match. A really good main event.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
not going to beat what they did at Wrestle Kingdom 12.
No, when I saw the announcement that it was going to be Jericho and Omega 2, and I was like, okay, you know what? It's not going to be like Wrestle Kingdom because that surprise, that magic is gone. Because that, like you said, that was the match that nobody ever expected. The thing with this is, while yes, this match may not felt or hit as great near as the level that the match did from Wrestle Kingdom, the story was there that Omega couldn't score the one-winged angel. And much like Omega's chase with Okada, he couldn't overcome that and win due to the fact because every time Omega tried to hit that move, Jericho had a counter. Because
Jericho lost to the one-winged angel. Everyone loses to the one-winged angel.
Yep.
And the other thing that I liked going into this is, the story has been built for now 2 years, and we're just now seeing, and this is another thing that people have to remember. This is the second Piper reference in this podcast. Piper doesn't work Portland, brother. Jericho was not going to work in the United States. He was never going to compete against WWE. This was Jericho's first American wrestling match, not working for WWE in 20 years.
Yep.
I mean, you go back to March of 1999 before he got taken off of WCW television, March or May.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
So this was really cool to see, and it was also cool to see the older veteran picking apart the younger guy who has beaten him before, and everyone knew he beat him before. It wasn't like it happened in New Japan, so it doesn't exist.
Nope. Everybody knew that it happened.
And because it was really one of the biggest catalysts. I'm sure that this helped set up what was inevitably going to be AEW.
Oh, absolutely. It was Jericho going to New Japan was the quote-unquote start, because I think it was a couple of weeks ago, Jericho did an interview. I can't remember who he did the interview with, but the way he did the interview and the way he gave his answers was very similar in the way of the feeling that people had when Hogan jumped to WCW. It legitimized WCW. When Hogan jumped to WCW, it legitimized WCW. It was like, okay, this is a real competition. They just got Hulk Hogan. The way Jericho did the interview, and he's like, I make AEW a name. I make it legitimate. I make it relevant. Yes, you have Cody, you have Omega, you have the Young Bucks, but I'm Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho, in the sense of the interview, was painting him in the light of Hulk Hogan. He's that guy.
He is that guy. And, the funny part about it is that, it's funny. Someone posted a picture the other day, like 2 days ago, and I may or may not have chimed in on this one, where they had a picture of John Cena, and it was like when he's about to do his run down the aisle.
Yeah.
And does the point, and next to it was an AEW sign. And it's like, people were like, oh, fucking hell no. No, I don't want to see John Cena show up in AEW. Screw that. And I'm like, why not? You guys want heel John Cena, he'd be an instant heel there. It's like, I'm not saying they need to legitimize themselves by bringing in John Cena, but I mean, if they started throwing John Cena, Brock Lesnar money for limited dates, I mean, I'm sure someone like Chris Jericho would broker that deal. I'm not saying that's a rumor. I'm just saying as a fan, I'm like, yeah, John Cena could have a great match with fucking Kenny Omega.
And this is the thing is, you bring up John Cena. All you have to do is look at what John Cena did at Mania, and when he returned to the Doctor of Thugonomics and looked at the crowd reaction.
He wasn't booed.
He wasn't booed there. And that's like, I was like, when I heard that music, I was like, why are you cheering this? This is John Cena heel edition. Like, why are you cheering?
Meanwhile, I'm sitting like with a single tear going down my cheek, like, he's back. The Doctor is back. It's like,
it was. That's the thing. Like, I sat there when like the music hit. I was like, I got super pumped because I was like, yo, he's going back to Thugonomics. I was like, yes. And then I hear the crowd and I'm like, why are you cheering? I was like, no, he's a bad guy. Like, this is his heel persona. This is what you people have been wanting him to do. Why are you cheering?
Because he's at that level like Ric Flair. Ric Flair, I think it's Eric Bischoff said it best. Ric Flair could light puppies on fire and stomp on them on his way to the ring. And
the crowd would still cheer.
The crowd would cheer because he's Ric fucking Flair.
Yep.
And the cool part about this is not to take away from the match that Jericho and Omega had. But it gave us another surprise.
It did. After Jericho wins, Jericho is cutting a promo about how he's the best and da-da-da-da-da. And then out of the crowd comes someone that... Now, if you're a hardcore fan, like myself and you kind of were expecting, but you weren't sure if it was going to happen.
I thought he was not. I thought he wasn't there. I honestly thought they had it. Like he had an obligation elsewhere.
I figured he wasn't going to be there because all intents and purposes, his reports had come out saying that he pretty much finished his contract and he was burned out with wrestling. He was like, I'm burned out. I need to break, whatever. And then out of the crowd comes Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose, and by God, Jim Ross sold this to no end.
If you believe the reports, Jim Ross didn't know that Moxley was in the building. I refuse to refer to him as his slave name. I will refer to him as his real name of Jon Moxley from this point forward. Jon Moxley comes out looking like $1 million. The crowd loses their shit. So for everyone who said that, of the 3 Shield members, there was one that may not have been the real fan favorite, fuck you.
Yes.
Jon Moxley made that crowd in one single moment orgasm all over the MGM Grand.
And then on top, and like you said, whether you want to believe the reports or not, Jim Ross's commentary when that happened sold that shit like $1 million.
He sold it the way Hulk Hogan's heel turn in '96 should have been sold.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I know that sounds really bad because Dusty and Tony and Bobby sold the shit.
Yeah.
But it was like, you never expected, like, Jon Moxley, this fresh after his official release, to show up at AEW. And guess what? He did.
Yep. Moxley shows up, lays out Jericho with the DDT, lays out the ref, and then goes to lay out Omega. They fight to the back entranceway, and finally, on top of a giant stack of poker chips, Moxley hits the DDT on Omega and stands tall.
Thus showing that, and this is something that I missed from the Monday Night War. And okay, so what are your thoughts before we stroke the ego of Jon Moxley via our awesome podcast? What are your thoughts of the Monday Night War as far as, we know that they're on TNT. I don't want another Monday Night War. I don't think we need another Monday Night War. However, it is awesome when the talent would jump ship back and forth. And that's what it felt like. It was like, holy shit, now anything can happen.
Well, speaking of Moxley and the Monday Night War, and as both of us have heard on the podcast with Jericho, he did the professional thing. He finished his dates. He finished his contract. He didn't renew his contract with WWE. He left.
He told them why.
Yeah.
Specifically.
He told them why he's not doing it. He did the thing that, as he said, a lot of other people there don't want to do. This is the thing. It's if AEW, the TV deal with AEW looks like it's going to be Tuesday night. Hey, I'm cool with that. You know what? Gives me Raw on Monday, gives me SmackDown on Tuesday, gives me AEW on Tuesday, or excuse me, SmackDown won't even be on Tuesdays when come October, it'll be on Fridays again. Yep. You know what? If AEW gives me a Tuesday night show for 2 hours and on TNT and does all the things that they're saying, I'm more than welcome to it, because honestly, it's not the thing that it's going to be a war again, because honestly, lightning's not going to strike twice. But it's the thing of, it's not the war, because at that time when the Monday Night Wars happened, it was because WWE was old and stale with the cartoon characters and everything, and you had ECW with the realism and the violence and everything, and then you had WCW kind of going, okay, maybe we need to shift gears a little bit, and they started to shift gears, and it forced WWE to become that realistic point of view. Yeah, and the one thing that I think people seem to forget about that Monday Night War is, for all of the like fuzzy, warm nostalgia that we feel from it, for every one good segment on either show, there was a lot of shit. Like, I'm sorry, for every Stone Cold with a beer truck, you had Mae Young giving birth to a hand.
You know, like
for every great NWO spot, you had Judy Bagwell on a pole.
Exactly. You know, to me, I don't want there to be a head-to-head fight. I want there to be competition, because what will happen is that will force either Vince, especially after this interview goes public and people get to, you know, not this interview, but the Moxley the emancipation of John Moxley on Talk is Jericho. If you haven't heard it, it's really good. It gives you the inner mind workings of someone who's just reached their last straw, but leaves in a professional manner. There are other wrestlers who have left the company under less than scrupulous means, you know, and have done podcasts talking about it. And at least with Moxley, he's very thankful for everything that happened in WWE.
Yeah.
But he thanks them for the Make-A-Wishes, which he put over a lot, you know, the importance of these kids and the fans that he connected with that are like, you know, you got me through hard times watching your matches. And it's like, he met his wife and he talked about all the good stuff, but then you got to hear the frustration where it's like, you see that things can be better, but it might not be better for you there.
Yep.
And I would love to see guys like him flourish there. I would like to see guys like the Perfect 10 Sean Spear flourish there. Kong was flourished there. You know, people that may have been to the big stage. I mean, Cody did all of this primarily because they wouldn't let him change his character to the character he has now.
Yep.
Like, imagine the American Nightmare in WWE currently. Would it be as over? Maybe not.
Very. It would be a very neutered version of it.
Exactly. But with AEW, we're getting a TV 14 alternative on cable television on a station that isn't what it was. I mean, you have to remember another thing that can't be lost in this discussion of the Monday Night Wars was the AOL Time Warner merger. People like to point at Bischoff and say, that's the guy that destroyed WCW. No.
Honestly, I will say this, because when I started listening to Bischoff's podcast, 83 Weeks, I'm a huge WCW mark. I am. I hold no points in holding them back. I was a WCW mark. But I got the book that they were talking about in the early days of that, and I read it where the guy went in and did. Honestly, Bischoff had nothing to do with it. Bischoff tried saving it, and his hands were tied.
This is what I can imagine, and I know this is going to sound really bad. I have not been to the Big Dance. I can only imagine from interviews and podcasts and conversations that you hear, where it's like you have to go through miles of bureaucratic tape in order to get your opinion heard, and even then, it's going to be out vetoed. And yes, Bischoff may have put creative control into certain contracts. We know he put it into Hulk Hogan's. Both admitted it. You know, yes, to keep paid guaranteed contracts. Yes, but guess what? He was only following the precedents that he was in, because guess what? He signed a guaranteed contract when he started in 92.
Yep, he's like, guaranteed contracts existed long before I started doing them. I had a guaranteed contract with the AWA.
Exactly. So the thing that got me was you hit the nail on the head. When you hear about these Janie Ingalls and you hear about these Brad Siegels and you hear about all of the Time Warner, the AOL mergers, all of that stuff is what hindered. I mean, imagine if you are the president of your company and you walk in and 16 people who don't know what your company is or what night it's on are telling you how you're going to run your shit in order to be better. better. And meanwhile, you've got the number one rated show in cable. How are we supposed to get this any better? It's like, that's what killed it. And to me, if I were the Young Bucks and if I were all of the brass at AEW, including Tony Khan, who Tony is in his early 30s.
Yep.
He's like us. He's like us, only he's a billionaire. You know, it's like he knows what it was. He's seen all of this. He's read all of this. And what he's doing is much like what Vince Jr. did when he bought his company from Vince Sr., where he's like, I have a better idea. I have a different vision. I think it could work globally. And it did. He had a fresh vision of taking all of these established stars from the territories, bring them into one umbrella, and showcasing the shit out of them. If you look at the boom period between 83 and 88.
Oh, yeah.
That was heavyweight champions from every territory. You couldn't shine a spotlight on these guys enough. I mean, you had, I think, at one point, 5 former NWA champions, 3 former AWA champions, and Hulk Hogan under one umbrella for 4 freaking years while Hogan was champion. You know, that's unfathomable to think about it today, but it's like, that's what we could be looking forward to with AEW, because all it could take is 1 or 2 major acquisitions, and AEW goes from being potentially, you know, like 1.5 to 2.3.
Yep.
You know, viewership, Nelson rating a week.
And the thing with, and like you said, Tony Khan, Tony Khan was very involved in the production of Double or Nothing. He personally timed the pay-per-view. He's the person that brought the show in with 15 minutes before the allotted time. He impressed. It was reported that he impressed a lot of people with his ability to make the show punctual, since it was his first time serving in such a capacity. He was also suggesting camera shots for the show's director. It also said he was congratulating everyone backstage after the matches, even high-fiving them. His enthusiasm for the show is said to have really touched the talent, who realized he was very invested within the show.
And from what I'm gathering from interviews that I've seen, the post-match video, which, by the way, okay, the press being in the back where they were doing, you know, press conferences like an NBA game. Yep. Fucking beautiful. Okay, beautiful. Have the press back there. You know, you had AOC. You know, Alexandria, Senator Cortez even was retweeting the thing that Cody said in his, talking about his wife. Like, you cannot buy the publicity of someone like, and I may not agree totally with her political views. It's not a political show, it's pro wrestling. But you can't buy that level of free publicity. So people who follow her on Twitter
saw that.
Never know who AEW. Well, what is this AEW? What do you mean by diverse? Oh, well, you know, the branding officer is an African American. They have a transgender woman in their division. They have a trans man in their first, you know, the Battle Royal.
The Battle Royal, and with Sonny Kiss. Yep.
You have a transgender man in the. It's like, wow, this is a real diverse company. We should pay attention to this. Oh, they have a show next month. Oh, and they have a show starting weekly on TNT. Well, maybe I will tune in on October 1st to watch this show. It's like, you can't buy that level of publicity. And had they not done those post-match press conference style things, holy shit, that wouldn't have been free press. You know, there are things that are being done with this company that excite me as a fan.
Yep.
I mean, you know, in 6 months, I'm going to be sitting on my couch watching this shit every week, being like, God, I love being a fan again. You know, it's nice to see that someone like Tony Khan is coming in with a fresh perspective, because Eric Bischoff was that guy too.
He was.
And you know, if it takes Tony Khan maybe prodding the old man or the McMahon family into upping their game, I mean, not to shit on anything, but your rebuttal to AEW's Double or Nothing was Brock Lesnar with a boombox.
And then on top of it, it was your second rebuttal, so to speak, was wasn't in the script. It wasn't in the script line of Sami Zayn in an electric chair.
Yeah, and I mean, and no offense, and I'm not trying to, once again, not getting political on the show, but you kind of have to look at the glaring elephant in the room. Their next big show is the Super Showdown in Saudi Arabia, a country, by the way, which is brutal to members of the LGBTQ community. Their women's rights are non-existent and are a joke whenever you mention it. The athletic, command basically said, women's wrestling will never take place here. So your top star, Becky Lynch, is not ever going to be on one of these shows in this country.
Yep.
Okay. And what's even worse is they are giving you matches that this prince wants to see. It's almost like he's a petulant child throwing a temper tantrum, being like, oh, well, this needs, when you're advertising this show as being potentially bigger than WrestleMania, then why the fuck did I stay up for 7 hours to watch WrestleMania?
Yeah, especially, and this is the thing is, not to interrupt the conversation between myself and Sergeant Fury, but we're going to pay some bills, and then we're going to jump right back into the conversation, picking up right from where we left off.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Do you like sports, interactive polls, friendly banter from two guys that probably shouldn't even be on the microphone doing this stuff anyways? Well, if you do, then you're in luck. Us two knuckleheads, Brandon and myself, comprise the Listen In podcast. That's right, Listen In, the podcast. We're talking sports, we're talking news, we're talking topical things, we're talking all sorts of things, my babies, and you are all invited to listen in right here on the Gear Radio Network.
Purposes, whenever there's one person I follow on Twitter, whenever he refers to the Saudi Arabia shows, he's like, he calls them Super Showdown 3 ... hashtag sweet Saudi money or whatever, because they're basically getting like $400 million like for these shows.
Yeah, which, hey, you're getting money, you're paying, you paid Shawn Michaels enough to come out of retirement, you're paying Goldberg enough to go over to this country to wrestle The Undertaker for the first time ever. Maybe we could get a Sting versus Undertaker match out of this too. But, to me, you've got stars who won't go to this for real reasons. It's not, it's maybe it's the brutalization of the people in Yemen. Maybe it's the fact that they murder homosexuals and people of different lifestyles in your country, and meanwhile you've got this new fresh alternative which is celebrating diversity, real diversity, not forced diversity, real diversity. And to me, more power to AEW. I cannot wait to see what they've got for Fight for the Fallen. I cannot wait to see. I'm going to keep giving them my money. I know a lot of people were a little annoyed at that, but you know what? You weren't annoyed to do it several years ago when the Monday Night War was happening. If you believe in a product, you're willing to spend $200 on a single house show ticket for WWE, but yet $50 for you and your homies to sit around the house and drink beer and smoke weed and watch AEW. That sounds like astronomically, unequivocally destructive to your bank account.
Yo, absolutely.
Like, bitch, please. Come on, have some fun. Invite some friends over, eat some chicken wings and pizza like you're 15 years old again watching Mick Foley getting thrown off the Hell in a Cell.
And that was the thing, like, I can't remember who it was. I can't remember who tweeted it. I think it might have been actually Lance Storm. Storm brought that point. He's like, so invite people, do what you used to do years ago and make a party out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I really wished I would have had friends watching it with me, but at the Cody Rhodes match, I was crying at the end, so I'm glad no one was here. But the other thing is, it's like, Fight for the Fallen, is that going to be on pay-per-view? Fuck yeah. All Out is going to be on pay-per-view again from Chicago. And, I mean, I'm not going to say I would love to see CM Punk show up. Balor would love to see CM Punk show up.
The fact that it's in Chicago, you're gonna get it's inevitable. You're gonna get the will he or won't he thing with CM Punk.
Tony Khan wants him, and I'm sorry, if CM Punk has a chip on his shoulder about what happened in WWE, it's like, okay, bitch, put your money where your mouth is.
Yep, basically. But, oh, man, that's pretty much AEW and everything. But AEW obviously making a strong case for bringing the wrestling fans back to where we once were.
And, that was something I read, I believe it was a columnist for Sports Illustrated, has challenged wrestling fans that in the last 10 or 20 years who walked away from pro wrestling, he's challenging them when this starts back up.
Yep.
To watch their product, because he was so impressed with what they did on Saturday. He was like, no, you guys don't understand. Like, we're about to see another revolution. And if you missed wrestling, because WCW did have its own fans. And when the Monday Night War ended, a lot of them left. You can't give people, I'm sure you love a cheeseburger, right? You love a nice bacon swish mushroom cheeseburger, rare on a nice toasted bun. But if you eat that for dinner every single night,
eventually you're going to walk away from it.
Eventually you're going to want some greasy ass chicken wings.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yep. And this is the thing is when WCW was finally purchased by WWE, and a lot of people forget that when the purchase went through, that was that was the Monday before WrestleMania 17.
Yes, it was. It was huge.
Like, that was the Monday before WrestleMania 17. So WWE doing what they did got more eyes on their thing, and a lot of people will say WrestleMania 17 was probably one of the best WrestleManias of all time. I think, look at the timing of it.
It was one of, to go to that, it was the first one that got over 1 million buys.
Yep.
First off. So that went to prove, I now run the wrestling world. 1 million buys. But you look at that card up and down.
Oh my God.
We were talking earlier about rematches.
Yep.
It's like, okay, so Stone Cold versus The Rock 2, I felt was the best of all of them, and it happened at WrestleMania 17. Undertaker versus Triple H, no DQ match with Motorhead playing Triple H to the ring. That was a great fucking moment. Jericho versus William Regal. Chris Benoit versus Kurt Angle. Tables, Ladders, and Chairs 2.
Yep.
Let's see. God, there was China versus Ivory. Shane versus Vince. WCW's owner versus WWF's owner.
Yeah, you had the gimmick, the old school battle royal.
Yep, yeah, the gimmick battle royal where Iron Sheik won.
Yep.
I mean, dude, on paper, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Like, all of those matches, and all of those matches had stories going into them. That's the other thing. Like, every single one of those matches mattered, had a video package. You cared about it. I mean, whether it was Jericho and Regal, because Jericho was the rock star and Regal was the general manager who needed to take this young upstart and put him in his place, to who's the better wrestler, Kurt Angle, the Olympic gold medalist, or Chris Benoit, the Canadian crippler. You had all of these elements, and yeah, it was perfectly timed after the fall of WCW. But think how close we were to not having that, because it almost worked had it not been for the Time Warner AOL merger.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the thing with the AOL Time Warner merger. It was one of the things of they didn't want wrestling.
And isn't it ironic that like almost 18 years later, the tweet that went out, it's like, we're back in the wrestling business.
And,
it's like,
and you know what? I will say this: when TNT tweeted that out via their Twitter account, I popped because they had the old, like, they set it up in the old school Monday Nitro type deal with the fire and the flames and the same design.
And was it just me, or did you hear the Ted Turner way of, I'm in the wrestling business?
I did. When I read it, I heard the Vince McMahon. I heard like the Ted Turner impersonation. Well, I'm in the wrestling business. I'm just like, the one, before we go finish up with what we were going to finish up with, the only hope I hope for AEW with being on TNT is, if you want to mention WCW, cool. Don't make it a focal point.
Nope. You know, history has a very bad way of repeating itself. It would be nice for them to learn from history. It would be nice for TNT to maybe have a hands-off approach, and let Tony and this group of renegades, revolutionaries, if you will, just do what us wrestling fans want and tell some good goddamn stories and have some great matches while doing it.
Basically, I think that's what we all want at this point as far as wrestling goes.
Absolutely. I'm going to keep paying $50 for it.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're going to finish up here with something fun and talking about wrestling and wrestlers in movies. And this kind of rolls into your aspect because, of course, you're Sergeant Fury of Films of Fury,
which you can find on Anchor.fm or wherever you get your fine-ass podcast. Cheap plug. Absolutely. And for me, you know, wrestlers and movies, they're like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together. I mean, some pro wrestlers are not meant for the silver screen. Some of them are. And some of them have given us some great films and great moments in films. And, you know, I have to tell you, when you told me the run sheet for what we were going to talk about, 3 movies with wrestlers came to mind almost automatically.
Yep.
For me, it goes They Live, The Princess Bride, and The Longest Yard.
Oh, absolutely. Those were kind of the same 3 I was thinking along the lines of when I was like thinking about it. I was like, you know what? I was like, I got Fury. He talks movies a lot. I was like, you know what? This might be a good topic to kind of end the show with. And I'm like, I was thinking those 3 along the lines.
Because a lot of people in our generation will remember, you know, Vince McMahon getting into the movie business with No Holds Barred.
Yeah.
You know, with Hulk Hogan, and then eventually that became a match. That became, you know, Zeus and Macho King with Scary Sherry versus Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Hulk Hogan, you know, on the SummerSlam.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, you had this setup, and it was like, okay, it's hokey as fuck. Okay, if you go back and you watch No Holds Barred, it's hokey as shit. Like, I do not imagine in my wildest dreams any of the scenarios, because it was kind of like a Ted Turner trying to buy WWF's biggest star, which eventually they did a few years later.
Yeah.
But there was like a jab at Ted Turner in there, and Zeus was better as Debo, let's be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
But then you had that, and then John Carpenter's They Live with Roddy Piper. My God, that movie is as important today, and it's 30 years old. It's as important today in the political world that we live in
as it was back then.
1988. Exactly. And, you know, having seen it, I now understand why Roddy Piper left wrestling, because it was a demanding film. It was a layered film.
Yes.
And he was such a phenomenal actor. And I mean, granted, he starred in a movie called Body Slam, which was a movie about pro wrestling in the early 80s. But this was a character that was written almost specifically for him by John Carpenter. And he had some of the greatest one-liners in that movie. Like, you know, I'm come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble gum. And, like, you know, the fight with him and Keith David in the alleyway.
Yep. Which Piper said him and Dustin Rhodes referenced for their Hollywood back brawl at WrestleMania.
I mean, the fucking Roddy Piper is just taking ball shots, like unabashed knees to the dick.
Yep.
And it's fucking great. And it's like, then you'd have wrestlers appear in movies, like, you've seen Roadhouse, right?
Yeah, of course.
Terry Funk in Roadhouse. Andre the Giant, obviously.
Princess Bride, yep.
Such a great one.
And what's funny is, like, it was a couple of weeks ago, and I was hanging out with some friends, and Roadhouse was on, was on one of the TVs in the bar we were at, and it got to the scene where they're destroying the alcohol, and my friend's like, he taps me, he's like, is that Terry Funk? I was like, yeah. Terry Funk was that big? I was like, yes, Terry Funk was that big.
Oh, Terry Funk was, and it's funny because you look at him and he's 6'1", so he's the same height as John Cena. And
yep.
You don't think it, but Terry Funk, when he was, straight out of the Double Cross Ranch in Amarillo, Texas, he was before ECW. I mean, he was a big boy.
He was a big dude.
He was a big friggin' dude, and then you see him standing next to Sam Elliott, and it's like, holy shit, little Sam Elliott's gonna get his ass whipped. Like, what the fuck? You've got Tai Chi performing Patrick Swayze with 9 abs, and then you've got Terry Funk being like, oh, I'm gonna punch you in your face. It's like, it was fucking brilliant to see Terry Funk in that. And wrestlers have made other appearances, like Kevin Nash as Super Shredder.
Yep. And then of course you have, when you brought up Vince McMahon creating his own thing, Hulk Hogan went on to star in a couple of movies himself.
Yeah, he had Suburban Commando.
Yep, Mr. Nanny. He had the Thunder in Paradise show. Santa with Muscles. What was it? Three Ninjas? Yeah, Three Ninjas at Thunder Magic Mountain or something like that.
Yeah, some shit like that. And it's like Hulk Hogan would show up in movies. I mean, he was in Gremlins 2, the new batch.
Yep.
As WWF champion. Okay, I'm not going to believe that Hulk Hogan is going to wear okay, I'm not going to lie. As a little kid, I did kind of want to know if Hulk Hogan walked around with the belt around his waist in public because of that movie. I was like, if I was WWF champion, I'd wear that fucking shit in a movie theater too. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. As a kid, yeah. And then of course Hogan's role as Thunderlips in Rocky 3.
Oh my God, the role that got him back to New York. It's funny because I was just watching Rocky 3 yesterday and I forgot, first off, how small Stallone was. He was shredded, but he was still small. And the fact that Stallone did his own stunts for that movie in that match. And then when you think about that, you're like, okay, Stallone did his own stunts against Hulk Hogan. And then you see how big Hogan was in that scene and you're like, Jesus fucking Christ. If I were Stallone, I'd be like, I don't have a stunt double? No? Where's Frankie? Where's my brother? Put him in here with this shit. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And nowadays, we have a lot of modern movies that have pro wrestlers, The Longest Yard, the Adam Sandler movie. It's
you had Goldberg, Steve Austin, Kevin Nash.
Khali.
Yeah, Khali was in it.
And Goldberg's role was so comedic. It was hilarious. And then, on Glow, Awesome Kong is on Glow.
Yep.
Which is awesome to see. Chris Jericho recently starred in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, which comes out this upcoming year, the newest Jay and Silent Bob film.
Yeah.
He also has gone on to star in an anthology horror show that Kevin Smith has had a hand in. So, I mean, it's Chris Jericho also was in, what was that, MacGruber?
Yeah, he was in, he had a spot in MacGruber.
Yeah, that terrible piece of shit. And then, you have wrestlers who voice characters in movies as well. So it's you'll sit there and you'll hear Hulk Hogan in the background of like Romeo and Juliet, or fucking Roddy Piper plays a bounty hunter in a Green Lantern cartoon.
Yep.
And it's just like, holy shit, like, these guys are everywhere. And of course, we mentioned AEW. Cody Rhodes is out there starring in television shows and in movies now. And it's like, it's only a matter of time before you start seeing, you have Braun Strowman was in, what was it, Holmes and Watson?
Yes. Yeah.
You have these larger than life personalities that don't need to necessarily star in a WWE Studios movie, although I'm sure that they would want that. But it's like, I could honestly see, look at the popularity of John Cena and Batista and The Rock. It's like, there's always that next guy who could stand out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When people talk like wrestlers in movies, everybody automatically goes to The Rock. I was like, yeah, but you gotta look at what The Rock has went through to get to where he's at.
He sucked for years. Like, okay, I know that just came out really harsh. Okay, like I know that just came out really badly, and I apologize to any Super Rock fans. Like, I'm a Rock fan. Like, I'm not gonna lie. But there were some of those movies that were just fucking hard to watch. And the reason why I think it was hard to watch is much like when he was trying to be Rocky Maivia and he was smiling.
Yep.
And he was just like, oh, I'm such the good guy. It's like, you see the game plan and the Tooth Fairy and, like all of these squeaky clean Disney movies and all that shit. And it's just like, I just want The Rock to kill people.
Yeah, but then you see his role that he plays on the HBO series Ballers, and you're like, holy shit, okay, he's not just an action guy.
No, exactly. I mean, yes, all of his movies recently, Jumanji was action, but Jumanji was a lot of humor.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, I could honestly see, a perfect example of this was Pain and Gain.
Yep.
Like, he was just a meathead who was, like, blowing all of his money on hookers and blow. Which, hey, if that's your thing, do it. But, like, it was such a fucking great role for him because he pulled off the serious parts and he pulled off the comedic parts pretty goddamn well. But he's one of those actors that, like, I honestly feel it would not be something weird to say or hear, the winner for Best Actor goes to Dwayne Johnson.
No, not at all.
It's not weird to think that. Just like it's not weird to think that could be said about Dave Bautista or John Cena.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, you look at what Batista's done. Yeah, Batista's mainly known for his role with the Guardians of the Galaxy, but he's starred in TV shows and movies elsewhere. He's not a bad actor.
And he's hunted for these roles too. Like, he's hunted to work with Jodie Foster. He's hunted to work with Sylvester Stallone.
Yep.
He has gone out of his way, Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling. He is looking for these roles to be a serious actor. And the cool part about it is it's like, let's be honest. He just starred in 2 of the top 3 movies of all time. Like, the Avengers Infinity War and / Avengers Endgame.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, those are almost $5 billion worth of ticket sales combined. And Dave Bautista was one of the biggest, coolest parts of those movies. Like, I'm sorry, he and the Guardians in Infinity War made those segments with Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, absolutely.
The Guardians of the Galaxy films are incredible, and his relationship with James Gunn could lead him to the DC Extended Universe if it plays out well. And you have John Cena is one of those guys who, yes, he starred in like The Marine and he made a couple of really bad WWE movies, but then you see him in like Cock Blockers or Trainwreck.
Yep.
Or and he's got comedic chops because that's naturally him. But a couple months back, he posted a picture on his Instagram where he's like, remember the picture where he was just unnaturally naturally super shredded again.
Yeah, because and the movie he was doing recently, Jackie Chan as well.
That's the one I was going to mention. Is he's like, I have to get in super great shape. I'm starring in a movie with Jackie Chan, and I stopped and I'm like, wait, Jackie Chan has a new fucking movie coming out? Like, John Cena starring in a movie with Jackie Chan.
Yep.
Like, dude just came out of retirement and he's working with fucking John Cena. Like, that's huge. I mean, and John Cena's Ferdinand was up for a fucking Oscar. So a movie John Cena worked on was nominated for an Academy Award.
Yep, it was.
So, I mean, I would love to see more wrestlers, and we've got a whole new crop, like, of wrestlers that could make the transition. Obviously, Roman Reigns is going to be in Hobbs and Shaw.
Yep. And you can't, and of course the Miz, I can see the Miz easily doing roles at some point. Yeah, I mean,
Stone Cold Steve Austin and Diamond Dallas Page have talked him up how he could be the next breakout guy.
Yep.
You know, easily. And I mean, you have that going for you where Stone Cold has starred in a good number of really good movies. Like, I'm sorry, like, I still think The Condemned is one of the best, you know, there's survival horror, you know, the deadliest, the world, you know, the game style movies. It's like, that's probably one of the better of them. It's a simple storyline, and he was really good in it. And it's like, when Stone Cold shows up to do like a comedic role, it's like, dude, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, he was great in Grown Ups too. It was fucking hilarious.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's
definitely love to see more wrestlers in film.
It's one of them things that wrestlers on a whole performing crowd in front of crowds day in, day out. So it's like, and obviously, as we know, yes, wrestling has scripts, so to speak, and everything. So it's not like these guys don't have the experience with scripts and acting a certain way and everything, so they can do it. It's just a matter of getting a break.
I mean, it took Dave Bautista a long ass time to get the Guardians of the Galaxy break.
Oh yeah,
I mean, he was in what was it, Riddick?
Yes, he was in Riddick. He had a spot. He did an episode of Smallville.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing like the muscle bound thing, and then, you know, James Gunn just saw something in him and was like, "This is Drax. Like, this is my Drax."
Yep.
And lo and behold, by Guardians of the Galaxy 2, this is a man who starred with Russell Crowe in the RZA in Man with the Iron Fist.
Yeah.
This is a dude who worked with Quentin fucking Tarantino. And it's like, all it took was just the right film to do it, just like The Rock. I mean, yes, The Scorpion King what got him in there, but really the movie that made him a global star was when he showed up in Fast 5, and it became like $1 billion movie.
Oh yeah, that was it. Great. Yeah, The Rock you had The Rock in The Rundown and the Disney movies that he did, but like when he popped up in Fast 5 as Hobbs, that's what made him.
Yeah, and it was tailor-made for The Rock, and he's so fucking charismatic, and he's such a lovable guy, where it's like, you want to see him succeed now in these movies, where it's like, yeah, you know, you could throw him in Jurassic World 3, and I would be like, oh fuck, he's gonna punch a T-Rex. Like, you know,
yep.
I could see this, and I would be okay with him punching a Velociraptor. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't faze me none. You know, just like if you would have told me like 10 years ago The Rock would be one of the biggest actors of all time, I would have been like, dude, he made Doom.
Yep.
You know,
I'm like, he was in Doom. What are you talking about?
Like, are you high right now? Maybe a little? No. You know, and it's, to me, he's doing the action stuff. John Cena hasn't really done a lot of the action stuff. He's doing more of the physical comedy from the seams of it.
Yeah.
But he's just trying to be the real actor.
Yep. Yeah, those are the main three right now, which is fine. And then you have the Miz is kind of the poster boy for the WWE films.
Yeah.
Which, in all honesty, that's kind of how John Cena started.
And not just that, but it's like he's got the Ms. and Mrs.
Yeah.
The TV show. And it's like, dude, that's not a bad show. Like, honestly, I've caught myself watching it being like, fuck, I'm starting to like the Miz. This is ridiculous. He's actually a nice guy. Fuck. Like, I'm a Miz fan. This sucks. You know, it's like I tried not to like him for so long. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm not going to like him. I can't. And then all of a sudden I'm like, fuck, he's actually normal.
Well, what's funny is I've been a Miz fan since like his days of the Real World.
Right.
So like when he was on the Real World, and then when he popped up on WWE TV, and I was like, yo, is that the dude from the Real? I looked at my sister and I was like, yo, is that the dude from? And she's like, yep. I'm like, well, he freaking made it. I'm gonna root for this guy no matter what. I was like, he got his dream.
And, you know, I think with the work that he's done over the last couple years, not only did he achieve it, but it's like he's one of those guys where I could see having crossover appeal.
Oh, absolutely.
All over entertainment. I mean, I could see him voicing characters in Disney movies. I could see him doing animation. I could see him doing comedy in movies. I could see him being like a plethora of different characters, not just the action dude who's blowing shit up, but like I could see him being the dad of a girl who's going through, you know, teenage troubles. As weird as that sounds, that I just said that the Miz could be that dad in that movie. He could totally be it. He could be a J.K. Simmons kind of character.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'm still honestly waiting for The Undertaker to be in a movie, but I don't ever think I'm going to get that.
He was in a movie.
Okay, we're not going to count Suburban Commando.
Yeah, he had a very small role, but at that point he was still Mean Mark Callis.
Exactly. It's like, you're a dead man, Ramsey. It's like, fuck, that almost ruined The Undertaker for me.
A lot of people are like, that are Undertaker fans, they're like, that doesn't count.
Like, I'm not saying that doesn't count, but fuck. I mean, he was on Celebrity Deathmatch.
He was.
He did play on Celebrity Death, and I believe they did call him Mark in that episode too. They called him Mark Callis.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, you're breaking kayfabe, cartoon. Jesus.
It's not. What's funny with The Undertaker is whenever he does anything like role wise, he goes by Mark Callis and not Mark Calloway.
And you know the funny part about it is like there's a meme of him playing Uno on a plane, and I'm assuming that he's playing Uno with like Mick Foley.
Yeah.
And the caption is, "It still blows my mind seeing the Undertaker doing real life shit."
Oh, yep.
And I'm sitting here and I'm like, you're right. That's not natural. Like, he's going to destroy someone's life with that hand. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yep.
Like, eventually we're going to see The Undertaker as like a stoner biker grandpa in a movie somehow, some way. It's like when, Mick Foley once said, kayfabe is dead when The Undertaker gets on Instagram and Twitter. Well, let's add to it. When The Undertaker stars on a sitcom as the wacky neighbor, that's when kayfabe is dead.
Yeah, that's when that is true. That when kayfabe is dead is when The Undertaker is on your TV, not as The Undertaker.
I mean, he's doing like the religious, like he did that religious super church Q&A thing last year, and it's like, that was awkward. Like, I'm like, shouldn't he be on fire? Like, shouldn't he be tombstoning bitches by now? Like, yeah.
Like,
this isn't natural.
That was like when they announced him for the Starcast with this past weekend with AEW, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, he's going to be out in public talking to people and questions, and wait, no.
Well, I mean, it's funny because you think of The Undertaker back in the day, like when he would do autograph signings, he'd wear a black sleeveless, like, button shirt,
Yep.
like a biker shirt. He'd wear black jeans, black boots, black bandana, black sunglasses, and essentially he was the biker taker, only he was out in the sun. And it's like, yeah, but now he's wearing, like, khakis and Bruce Lee hoodies from Roots of Fight.
Yep.
Which it's like, that's kind of cool, but at the same token, that's the same shit I wear. And I don't want to see The Undertaker wearing my hoodie.
Basically, right?
You know, it's like, fuck.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah.
So that's how we're gonna end it. Kayfabe is officially dead when The Undertaker is the old grandpa the old grandpa neighbor.
Absolutely. Book that shit, someone.
So, but I'm going to thank Sergeant Fury for joining me on this super long extended edition of the TTRP. But you know what? Lots of information. We recapped AEW. We talked wrestlers and films and the ending of kayfabe. But I think it's been a good show overall. Any final words?
Absolutely. Dude, thank you for having me on as guest co-host tonight. I tried to fill in for one Cyclone Jones as best as I could. Hopefully I do him proud.
Oh, you did him more than proud. But I'm sure when he gets some free time from his current missions, I'll hear all about it.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't swear too much for his liking.
Yeah, no, you're good. But for Sergeant Fury, I'm Pat G. We'll see you on the flip side.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.